Are we running the Eagle Mossad?
No, no Eagle Mossad tonight. As far as I know, we're on right now, though.
Oh,
So,
are we really? Okay,
yeah.
so
So what
apparently
I'm
I'm
going to
watching
say,
an
yeah.
old episode. I'm sorry. I thought I was watching the new one. Please continue, Mr. Champ.
Okay, you ready? Here we go. Here we are, flying in by the seat of our pants. Hey, did you miss us? It's Mission Log Live, and I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ken Ray. I'm watching an old episode of Mission Log Live, by the way. Kind of exciting.
Yeah.
You know the old saying, the show must go on. Well, it didn't for one week, and then it didn't, for another week. But here we are now, this week, with something live, still testing the waters, still rebuilding to bring something new to our Star Trek pals every Tuesday night. Hey, guess what I forgot to do? And tonight we're figuring this out. You can probably tell. Huge thanks to Mission Log listener Earl Green, who has stepped in with the producing duties as we continue to, figure out what the heck's going on. I will say this right away from a technical end of production, this whole thing, it's not easy for anybody, especially anybody to just sort of step in. And so kudos to Earl. We really do appreciate it. And if everybody's cool, we're hoping to be back up and running for full capacity next week. Like one of the great things about Mission Log Live is we take calls. Oh, not so fast. Probably not doing that this week because we're trying to get all the other kinks ironed out. But certainly we're hoping to get back to calls. Well, golly, next week, because next week, John, we're going to be talking about a new episode of Discovery.
We are. Discovery will be coming up. That's kind of amazing. So, since we're still putting all the pieces together, we won't have our usual call in segment tonight, as Ken said, but we will still be reading your questions and comments from Facebook. So, you can drop those in to the Facebook chat. And wait, we see you there. We see you there right now. In fact, there's Rick, there's David, there's Carlos, there's John, there's Alan Perry, there's Dave Taylor, Nathan, Lars, so many friends stopping by to say hi. There's Narda, Chuck, our old friend Chuck Joyner, Ken, there to say hi to us.
Nice.
And some shout outs to Earl, saying Earl is cool and yay, Earl. And way to go, Earl. I can't disagree with any of that. So thank you to everybody who is popping in to say hi. And please do remember to put your questions in that chat tonight so we can carry on the conversation with you. So thanks. It's good to be back. And, tonight we're just going to sort of play it fast and loose. So we also want to welcome our guests. We do have guests who are going to be joining us a little later tonight, all the way from the world of podcasting. Wow, weird. It's two guys, one track, Ira Heinichen and Josh McClenney. We will meet them in just a moment. Go away, go away, go away. All right, but what's coming up, as Ken said, next week on the show and for the weeks after that, it is the start of Star Trek Discovery Season 2 on Thursday, January 17th. Our plan is to discuss those episodes every week live with you as we did with Season 1. So when disco is on, we are all up in the disco. And when disco goes away, we will get back to topical discussions and interviews with guests. And of course, all along the way, your comments and questions. Funny thing, Ken, that I mentioned Disco Season 2 because we dropped a poll question out there about Disco Season 2.
Well, kind of.
Kinda.
I mean, are you going to watch? Are you going to rewatch season 1 before season 2 starts? Is the poll question that we have. It's getting a little late for that, unless you're on holiday or something like that, because we're recording this or going live on Tuesday night. Star Trek Discovery starts on Thursday night, so I guess we, could ask, did you or are you finishing up a rewatch before you go in? I started thinking about the last episode of Discovery again, or the last episode of season 1.
Yeah.
I think I know how the last episode of season 2 ends.
Wait, already?
Yeah,
Okay.
based on season 1. I think you could skip season 1 and I could tell you how season 3 starts.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I'm not going to do it now.
Okay.
And that's not based on anything I've heard from anybody. It's just something that's been kicking around in my head. So, we'll see if I'm right in like a year and a half. Who knows? Yeah. Anyway, the poll question, will you rewatch season 1 of Discovery before season 2 begins? Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/missionlogpod. Is that right? Mission Log Pod.
Yes. Yeah, Mission Log Pod.
Facebook.com/Mission Log Pod. And that poll question will be up for the next week. So have at.
there's a slim majority right now saying that they will rewatch, or maybe they have rewatched season 1 before season 2. 52% who say that they have or that they will. Here's the thing: I would have liked to have rewatched season 1 before season 2, but not necessarily because I feel like I need it as background going into season 2. I wanted to rewatch Discovery because you and I did our jobs here. We did the week by week, play by play, discussing it, picking it apart with our listeners, which was a great experience. But the thing is, as you and I talked about from before the time Discovery went on the air, the whole deal was that it was one story told in 15 parts. Well, minus the prologue, which was the Battle of Binary Stars. Okay, but I feel like, we get so mired in the individual episodes that we don't really have a chance to take a step back. And I would have liked to have watched the whole thing all the way through, knowing what's coming. Because sometimes I feel like you can actually appreciate something a little better if you know the spoilers, if you know the twists, because then you're watching it in a very different way. You're not watching it just waiting for the twist to get revealed.
I understand what you're saying. I don't regret
Good.
not watching it again. It's
Yeah.
fine. I will probably go back and watch it again at some point. The parts that stuck out, still stick out in my head. Like I still remember, the episode Dance with Me for Science. I can't remember what the episode was actually called, but that part where, the Gorgomander was there and they kept going back in time over and over again.
Oh, sure.
Harry Mudd was doing his thing.
Magic to make the Venus man go mad, or
yes. Yeah. And then there's also the one in Latin that I can't remember the name of, but the one where we went, where Saru went kind of nutty and nearly killed everybody because he was happy for the first time. Right. The big episodes kind of stick with me. The plot points kind of stick with me. And I'll probably go back and watch it again at some point. But I'm just excited to see. I'm excited to see Anson Mount's take on Pike, Rebecca Romaine's take on number 1. I'm sorry. Apparently, there won't be a Boyce. I really wish there was going to be a Boyce. It's interesting because I was listening to our guests earlier, and they were talking about what a Herbert McCoy was.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing somebody's take on that, because the doctor that we have right now, is Culber, of course, is no longer with us. But the guy who's sort of the science guy on the show is kind of weird. He does not fill that sort of curmudgeonly role. I don't think anybody actually does in Discovery right now, do they?
And what's Star Trek without a curmudgeon?
Well, seriously, Diana Muldaur, say what you want. Yeah. I say, bring back don't bring her back, because there's no show for her right now.
But, I love Pulaski. Yes.
Yeah, the Pulaski Files. That could be one of the 19 Star Trek series that CBS is cranking out.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, I imagine that our guests might have a thing or two to say about all of this, or maybe nothing. Maybe nothing at all. I'm not entirely sure, but let's welcome them now. So you know them from their world famous podcast, Two Guys, One Trek. Here they are joining us now is Ira Heinichen. Did I get that right?
World famous. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Hyping us up. Oh, jeez.
Yes. So Josh McClenney and Ira Heinichen, there they are. Welcome to the show, guys. Glad to have you. And now, all right, but before we get too deeply into this, though, neither of you have watched Discovery, right?
Josh has not. I have.
Not me. Yeah.
I have watched all of season 1. Yeah. I have not watched any of the shorts, though.
I haven't seen any Discovery at all. Yeah.
None of it at all. Okay. So let me tell you what happens.
Spoiler!
Everyone dies.
Oh, okay. So you have watched it then?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Not everyone does.
I can confirm that everybody does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I want you guys to tell your story. For those in our audience who have not seen or have not listened to Two Guys, One Trek, go ahead and give us the elevator pitch version of what you did.
Oh, man. Elevator pitch of what the podcast is, or the Genesis origin story?
Yeah, well, tell us what the podcast is, and then you can tell us a little bit about that origin story.
Yeah, so Two Guys, One Trek was, well, I guess it's kind of tied into the origin story.
I mean, a bit.
Which is that Josh was working his way for the first time through all of the different Trek series.
Yeah, I came along late to the Trek party. Later on, completely late, and I started with
TNG,
Next
and then worked her way through Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. And the whole time that he was watching, I was like, dude, you've got to watch the original series. And it was just taking so long that finally we were playing golf one day. True story. And I was like, bro, we should sit down and watch it together. And if we're going to do it, because Josh and I have known each other for years, we did sketch comedy together, wrote some stuff together. So we've always been very project kind of oriented with each other. And I was like, well, if we're going to sit down and do something like that, we might as well make a project out of it. And so we sat down and started watching the original series together. Our tagline that we ended up coming up with that kind of sums up the show is Trek is best watched with a friend.
And it is.
And so we actually sat down, you know, with a couple of drinks in our hands and ate some pizza, watched Star Trek, and kind of dove into the crazy wackiness and amazingness that is the original series. And that's where we started from.
I was kind of nervous starting off with it, just because he's such a Trek, you know, he's a Trek professional, really. So he knows all about Trek. And I was, again, like I said, I was still new at it. And I didn't really know if I could hang. That was my biggest fear in starting it. I'm going, oh my God, can I hang with somebody that's a longtime Trek fan and that's watched many of all the movies and all the series? And I'm just kind of getting out of it, beginning to watch this original series that many people have seen and that I've not seen.
But you really knew your stuff. I mean, you had watched like 600 hours of Star Trek up to that point. I mean, it's not like it was brand new.
Time well spent.
But it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I remember the hook for me for the show was it was so cool to be able to sit down and watch that show with you. You have never having seen it before.
At all.
Like, I don't know if you guys remember. Well, you do, because we're watching Discovery. That's why Discovery is so amazing. But you only get to watch something for the first time once, you know? Like, it's magical. And that was super, super interesting.
Unless you have head trauma. Yeah.
Let me ask really quickly. So, Josh, even though you had not watched TOS, had you watched the TOS movies?
No. Not at all.
Really? How did you? Oh, dude, you missed my Christmas movie.
Well, but so that was also. I mean, so we've at this point in the podcast we've released three seasons. So the first 3 seasons of TOS, and then we realized we weren't done yet because there was the animated series.
We wanted to keep going.
So we made a Trek.
So we were just waiting.
We still had the animated series, and then we still had the movies, which is really like...
That was kind of the thing that we first started talking about. We actually didn't start off talking about the original series, the show. You pitched to me...
Because I wanted to watch the movies.
Yeah, he wanted to watch the movies with me. He was
For me, when I was a
kid,
it was the movies was when Trek got real.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like big and like wide-eyed. And one of my favorite movies growing up when I was a kid was Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the one with the whales.
Sure.
Such a good movie.
Yes. That and animated Robin Hood. Those were like my 2 childhood movies. So yeah, but in order to get there, it was like, well, I just knew that it was going to be so much more impactful to get acquainted with those characters.
We took the long way around to get to
it.
But it was time well spent. Yeah, it was.
So
and I think that's what created the nervousness. I'm going like, oh, I'm going to go in and I'm going to really get to know these characters. And again, could I hang? I didn't even know who Scotty and Bones were. I thought they were the same person. Honestly,
that's right. That's right.
I didn't know. I didn't really know. I knew Kirk and I knew Spock, and that was kind of it. And everybody else was a little bit of a blur
and a little bit of the crossover from TNG.
Exactly. Yeah. So
or
TNG,
the later shows.
I knew of people, but I was like, oh, well, I don't really know what you do on the ship and what the whole thing is about. So it was. But I really happy.
Long story short, Josh hated it.
100 plus episodes later, not my thing.
Yeah. Moved on. Well, Carlos in the chat has a very relevant question. He says, "Were you living in a cave?"
Yes,
probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I just never came across
it. The skin tone is makeup. He's currently still looking for his precious, the ring.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I just.
Well, I mean, look, it's just sort of, you know, I realize that my experience is my own experience, but you know, I remember growing up watching the original series, so everything that came after it came well after that. It all came from that origin of the Kirk, Spock, McCoy series and those movies, and it's just hard for me to think about, even at a time when Next Gen was on the air, not then seeing the TOS cast movies. That went on through to 91, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, and we talked about it. We've recorded the next 2 seasons. So we've already watched the animated series and the movies. We just haven't released those yet. Yeah. So we've worked through those, and we talked about that actually. We did. Like how big Star Trek really was during that time. Yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah. It was huge. It was definitely huge. Yeah. But that just goes to show, even when something's super, super popular like that, the audience that it can reach is still incredibly enormous. Yeah.
It's sort of like I'm super into Wings, and then somebody says, "Oh, you should also hear the Beatles because Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings." You know?
No, totally. That completely makes sense.
Beatles? Yeah, like the insect?
I hear. Right. I know of them.
Right.
Like Beatle. Like.
Right.
That's a good point, though. But I bet you there are still people who are like, "Oh, is that the Beatles?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was unconventional the way I started watching Trek, and I was late to the party, completely. And even when I was but the great thing about Star Trek that I really love, and the thing that really warms my heart about it, is the fact you know immediately when you're a fan. No matter when you start watching, no matter what show you start watching. I've had people start watching that I've converted into watching Star Trek, and they've started on Deep Space Nine, you know, and they've started on other shows, and they're like, wow. Because I go, you know, you may want to start on this show, and if you like it, you'll know immediately. Yeah. And that's what I really love about Star Trek. I
agree.
The first episode, I was like, I think this is my thing.
Star Trek, you're kind of in on, or you're not.
Completely.
It either really works for you, and like, there's such an aesthetic with it.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
Well, and I think I don't. Go ahead, Ken.
Well, I don't want to keep treating you, Josh, like, you know, some sort of, you know, weird lab experiment.
But that's fun.
I'm used to that.
True.
Guys, it's fun.
It is fun, and plus we could charge like 2 bits a gander, so that'll be fantastic. But
2 bits a gander.
See the two-headed boy born with only one head.
Oh, that's an old. Oh, well, now you just reminded me of a whole other thing. But all right. So here's my question though. Did you know enough to know? Okay, well, Kirk's a sexist jerk, because that's sort of the premise that people go into it with a lot of times, and I don't agree with that, honestly. I know that when we started doing our rewatch for Mission Log, I was kind of coming in with that, love him and leave him Kirk, whatever, and you get a little bit of that in season 3, but he's a much more well-realized character, I think, than people realize if they're not actually sitting down to really pay attention. So I'm curious, were there any preconceived notions that you came in with, either that got reinforced by, you know, actually sitting and watching it all the way through for the first time, or they got blown away by doing that rewatch or watch, I guess I should say.
I would say
we didn't really get love him and leave him, did we?
No, we didn't.
We didn't get that.
The thing about the podcast that we did, and we immediately did kind of subconsciously, is we sort of put ourselves.
I was going to say, you had a very visceral reaction to the very first episode.
Like the way I experience things is
Kirk specifically.
Exactly. I really try to put myself in watching or doing anything. I really try to put myself in the shoes and in the position of the thing that I'm watching. I try to put myself in the movie. I try to put myself there. So I kind of planted us, you know, subconsciously on the ship. And the first reaction that I had of Kirk was that he was just incredibly dangerous.
so afraid for your life.
There was no windows. Where were my orders?
That's right, the windows.
It was terrifying.
You were so upset about the windows.
Because I kept going like, what if I was a young ensign and this jackass just told me, this guy just told me to sign on to this great mission that we're going to go discover planets, we're going to go see stars, visit new species, and I have this windowless box of a room that I have to sit in, and he's running on mission, and then he's sending
And
red
people are
shirts.
dying.
People are dying, guys.
The death
Yeah.
count, the death count on the original series is
Yeah.
well documented.
Yes, exactly.
But that really was a big takeaway.
That was the first
We-
reaction. I thought
early
he was
on.
incredibly dangerous.
We actually hit on a thing when we were watching TNG, because there are 1,000 people
Mhm.
on the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
And we hit on a thing that, like, what about so we sort of cast ourselves, we're the guys peeling potatoes down in the galley.
That's what we are
Mhm.
too.
The
Yeah, oh, good.
And that's a very dangerous place to be.
Well, no, here's the thing, though. So we're just down there peeling potatoes, and then it's like, auto destruct set 5 minutes. And we're like,
Uh-huh.
they're like, like Picard's like, well, there's nothing we can do.
Things.
Yeah, we're gonna have to blow up the ship, and like 980 people, basically the 20 people who aren't like right next to the bridge, are like, hang on,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Sir?
Could you repeat that?
One more time? Yeah.
Yeah.
somebody's having a bad day, it would seem. Sort of,
So that's what I was thinking with Kirk, and then he's just sending red shirts down like it's nobody's business, and then coming back up, cracks a joke with Spock and cracks a joke with Bones, and everything's fine.
The
And
rest of the red shirts are like, "Where is Tommy?
like people,
Where is Tommy?"
he went, and he never came back.
But we should say Kirk did win you over.
He did.
Do you remember when that was?
Oh man, I kind of, but then you probably know better. He won me over at several different times, like
There's one episode in
a
particular.
couple
I
of times he
remember.
won me over. So when do you think? When do you?
What's the name of the episode you can never remember?
The city.
Yes, best.
The city,
Best.
city on the edge of tomorrow.
We're just going to wait.
So
We're going to
close.
wait for you to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah, City on the Edge of Forever. There
Very
you go.
good. Very good.
That's the one where he sold me. He showed me. I mean, that I'm a sucker for a love story for number one. So
Yeah.
that was in there, and it was the first one that I saw that was less tongue in cheek and a little more cinematic in its.
Yeah, man, it's great. He meets the girl, and 48 minutes later, she's dead. That's that's a great love story.
Point.
There you go. See?
Yeah, that episode, man.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so good.
I think afterwards we went, oh my god, that was a really
Yeah.
great episode. Like that was fantastic. Like they had good episodes before that. but
Balance
that
of
one-
Terror. That was another one
Balance
where
of
Kirk
Terror.
was really, really good.
That's right.
In particular.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
they're not saying our favorite one. I think we need to kick them off.
Yeah, yeah,
Was
I
this
think you're
one?
right.
The Corbomite maneuver.
Corbomite,
we
yeah.
have.
Oh no, we love the Corbomite maneuver.
Good. Okay, good.
Oh, please! You would have said that now if I said turnabout intruder.
No,
That doesn't
I do
count.
think that was the first one because
Yeah,
that
might
was
have
when
been.
Kirk is in his chair doing the bluff, and you're like, "All right,
Oh yeah.
all right, I'm picking up
Oh.
what you're putting down."
that's right.
That was one of the very first ones that won you over on
Oh
Kirk.
man. See, I don't remember the titles all the time. It's just I watched it,
And
one
then
way
Tiny
through.
Ron Howard with the man
Ron
voice.
Howard.
No, tiny Clint Howard.
Tiny Clint Howard. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Clint Howard.
That's
And
right.
Hetty LaRue.
And Hetty LaRue.
Hetty LaRue
Oh,
was
here's the Hetty.
that for whatever reason that was the name of the puppet that they used in
Yeah.
Corbomite. That we-
Hetty LaRue.
Yeah,
That's
it was-
nice. I
That's
like
good.
that.
That's good. Well, so I'm curious, and Ned, you went through this whole process and you watched every episode. You did your recording. Did you do block recordings, or did you do like one a week, or how did you go about it? I'm just curious how much
Yeah.
saturation of Star Trek you had.
We would double it up, and if
Mm.
we weren't feeling 3 sheets to the wind, we would try to do 3, but usually it was 2.
Nice. Okay.
What about the decision? I'm curious about the decision to actually release a season at a time.
No, there was thought behind that. The thought behind that was that we kind of envisioned it being a companion piece to watching the shows, and people don't watch one episode a week.
Yeah.
And so we that was the main thought behind it too. But later on, it became it's a lot of work to put them together. We edit them down so they're not too long, and we always play a couple clips, in the middle of from the actual episode. So there's like some production value that goes into it.
It takes some time to.
And it was just kind of easier to batch those. Not so good for building an audience.
No.
But somehow we've been very blessed and managed to find an audience regardless. So
Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of the nice thing about a podcast, though, is once you get it out there, it's out there forever.
yeah,
And
it's
and it,
evergreen content, like
yeah,
people are going to be watching Star Trek for forever. And that's why you guys will live forever in Mission Log.
that's terrifying. Yeah.
It is. It really is, right?
Your face dropped.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So,
But you have this body of work out there. You have these episodes that you did, and they continue to gain an audience. So if you go back and look at your numbers, I'm sure they keep going up. So do you plan to do anything else after this now, related to Star Trek, or to continue what you started?
funny you should ask.
Oh, wow. Wait, we actually, folks, we did not plan this.
No, it's true. We didn't.
Go put on our hats. Today we're.
No, we do actually have. So first of all, we've got 2 more seasons. We're gonna sometime this year. The animated series will come out. That's just a work and time issue. It's like I mentioned, it takes a lot to put them together. But that'll be coming sometime this year, and the movies. So there'll be 2 more seasons of TG1T. But we just started a brand new project called Film School. Which is another podcast. Very similar format.
It is.
To You Guys One Trek. But Josh is a filmmaker. As his day job, and I'm a writer. In part as our day jobs. We're still getting there. But hence the name Film School, not film experts.
We're learning too.
But we're sitting down and watching great movies together, and then kind of dissecting the storytelling and the filmmaking from that, and recording it as a podcast. So that's our new project, Film School.
All right, so I'll throw out some suggestions. The Big Bus. I definitely hope you add that in there with Stockard Channing about the world's first nuclear-powered bus.
Oh, nice!
Surely you're going to do that.
Duh.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a list, but what's your other one?
Okay. Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, starring Michael Caine and Sally Field and Telly Savalas.
The Poseidon Adventure. Oh,
yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So are these B movies?
I'm like,
these are terrible, terrible movies.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we're
good.
Definitely
okay.
Going to be doing that at some point, no question.
But I was going to suggest The Fish Who Saved Pittsburgh, which is also Stockard Channing.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in on the title
alone. All those Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I'm so in on that. We are starting though with in the complete other direction. We're doing AFI's top 100 films to start with.
Oh,
and
those.
Then we'll branch out from
The
there.
awards.
Okay. By the way, I want to jump over to the chat real quick because some good comments here. When we asked you what you're doing next, John Hazard says they're running for president. So that's
a thing, right?
Yeah,
Dual presidency.
So you could do that. Chris Riker says, are we getting to The Escape Artist? So The Escape Artist was the last of the 4 Trek shorts.
Oh.
And last week, we won't be able to do that actually, or actually week before last. We won't be able to do that because both of our guests have not watched that. I will tell you though, as a spoiler, I really liked it. Ken, did you watch it?
Yes.
I haven't seen it, but.
And did you like it?
Yeah, sure. I don't quite understand. I mean, so you've got Harry Mudd and another adventure with a bunch of robots, which I mean, isn't going to happen for another 10 years until we get to I, Mudd. So that was kind of a surprising thing. I mean, reaching back, first of all, for the character and then reaching back for something else like that was kind of weird. I will say, not that anybody asked, but I will anyway. I think it was my least favorite of the 3.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it was their favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Rainn Wilson did a fantastic job directing it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing structurally wrong with it. It's just the other 3 stories sort of caught me a bit more. They played more to my wheelhouse. So
yeah. See, I thought it was much like how people wanted us to appreciate I, Mudd or Mudd's Women. It was fun. It was a fun episode with Harry Mudd, but I got more out of the other shorts, particularly like Calypso, where you just told this deeply complex romance story that played out in 12 minutes and really gave you something to chew on and something to think about. So
yeah, just about every other one of the short tracks, I was like, oh, that was too short, and this one I was like, no, it's fine.
Right. Right. Okay. So there you go, Chris. That is Ken's informed opinion and my informed opinion about. Oh wait, and Ken just spoiled the ending. Well, sorry about that, but yes, that is indeed what we do on this show. Is we spoil things over and over. We're now getting the shaking fist of doom.
Right. Are you guys going to talk about it? No, but we will ruin it
But
for
we
you.
will spoil it for you. Yes.
How would that be? Is that yeah, sorry about that. Didn't mean to, although that actually is what we, I mean,
that is what we do on this
intentionally,
show.
but yeah, that is what we do. I mean, theoretically, we should be spending at least half this show talking about that show, but
yeah, on this show we spoil everything, particularly those shorts. So
we spoil everything. That's that'll be our motto in Latin.
Yeah, and to go back to this continuing conversation here, John specifically said we're not discussing it because these guys haven't seen it. Yes, and then we did, but now we're coming back to the guys who haven't seen it. So there you go.
Except I think one of them has though, right?
You guys
nobody's watched the shorts.
Wait, nobody's watched the shorts.
Nobody watched the shorts. Okay.
Ira, you watched season 1, but you have not watched the shorts.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Harry Mudd, some stuff happens, blah, blah, blah.
All right, so let me ask you a question. When we were doing Mission Log, back for the original series and then went into the animated series, we actually did this thing where we doubled up on the animated series. So for the 22 episodes, I believe it was, we actually did 11. Yeah, we did 11. And there were people who wrote in before we did the animated series saying, please, for the love of God, skip the animated series. And we kind of felt like, well, we can't really skip it because we have to include it. But tell you what we'll do. We'll give it short shrift because we honestly didn't expect to find that much. And I want to say, like, by the second week, so we're 4 episodes in, it's not like we thought we'd made a mistake, but I think we were both amazed at how much Trek there was. That was kind of our take.
Yes.
I'm curious what you're thinking as you've now watched it. Your episodes haven't come out. And for, again, the love of God, don't spoil what's coming.
We're gonna
try.
There's a dude with 3 arms.
What? Crazy.
Yeah, man. Our reaction to it was definitely it's not the hittest of hit and miss, Treks for sure. But I think what we saw mostly was the potential.
Oh, enormous potential.
The fact that there has not been another animated Trek series is a crime.
Yeah, because we feel that universe within an animated series can just blow people away.
And that was mostly our problem. That was the I mean, we still very much enjoyed it, but if we were to have a note.
Excuse me, Star Trek.
Excuse me. To have a note to give, it would be like, man, you got to take more advantage of the medium that you're using, which is you can do anything.
Yeah, we think it just some of the episodes just didn't go for it. We were even watching it going, oh, they could have just done things in the episode that they can't normally do in our real world realm. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just we love animation. So.
It is weird because you go back and you watch the animation and it seems sort of cheap. It seems sort of crap, I guess. And yet, what was the trivia on that, John? That it was like one of the most expensive animated shows being made at the time.
It was, for a show that cut as many corners as it did, it was still very expensive to produce. But clearly it's not up to the animation of like a feature film, but it was very much of its time. If you look at other things being cranked out by Filmation in the 70s and other studios, Hanna-Barbera during that early mid 70s period, they all kind of did the same things, running like 7 frames a second.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Japan was way ahead of the game at the time.
Yeah.
It would have been amazing to have had a Japanese studio on their hands. But I mean, that makes me think, wasn't the original series a very expensive show for the time?
It was. But then they had to keep cutting corners. By the time you get to the 3rd season, they're spending a lot less.
I mean,
but yeah. As I think we all know. But as we all know, that happens a lot. A TV show comes on and it's a hit enough, but then the studio says, wow, look at what you did. We're going to cut the budget.
Yeah.
Trim.
Yeah. By the way, some more interesting comments here. 50-foot Spock is still out there. Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. That's
man. Yep.
That's right. He is.
Yep.
Looking for
Rick says, I wish CBS would reanimate TAS with modern techniques. I think that is a very cool idea. Carlos points out that background music that played over and over again. Carlos, I have to tell you, La La Land Records did a release of the soundtrack correctly mixed, but I think you can even find a very poorly mixed version on YouTube and just listen to all 15 minutes. And that's all there is.
Love the music.
15 minutes.
That's amazing. Is that including the theme song?
Yes.
Yeah.
I go to sleep to that.
Yeah, it's great. Right? Just put that on a loop, and it's fantastic. I love that. And we have news about 2 new animated series. So they announced the one that Mike McMahon from Rick and Morty and TNG season 8 is writing about the Lower Decks. And that's about all 4 of us.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
So are you a Rick and Morty fan? Is that why, or what?
All of the above. I mean, primarily the reason I applauded is because of exactly what, our reaction to the animated series was, which was, this is untapped potential. Yeah. Like this is something that hasn't been done with Trek to the full, extent that it can go. Even if it is a kid, even if they did go the same direction and make it a kid's show, there are some brilliant kids cartoons that have been made over the years, and Trek could it's just been a long time coming. That's the main reason. But yes, I do love Rick and Morty.
Well, that is the second one, of course, because there's the Rick and Morty thing. But then I guess just in the past, couple of days, John, or maybe 5 days, maybe there's been the announcement that they're going to have an animated series that is geared more towards kids as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'll watch it. I can't wait.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the potential.
You're their target demographic. I feel fairly certain that but I mean, I do wonder, when they say that it's going to be a kids-oriented thing, what is that going to be? I'm thinking about things like, I haven't watched Star Wars Rebels. I did watch, I think I watched part of Clone Wars a bit. The robots drove me crazy. The rest of it seemed kind of interesting. I don't know if Rebels is supposed to be geared towards kids or not, but I know there are a lot of people who are really immersed in the Star Wars universe.
A lot of adults watching that show.
Yeah, who think it's a fantastic thing. So when they say geared towards kids, I wonder if they just mean it won't be as violent and, say, cursy as Discovery is, but I mean, it'll still, would they consider TOS to be geared towards kids at this point? I mean, what are we talking about when we say geared towards kids? Are we talking about Starship Babies or something like that?
I think there's even examples of cartoons that were geared towards kids that were actually centered around kids that are brilliant too. I mean, I would pray for a Star Trek series that was something like Legend of Korra or Avatar: The Last Airbender. Those are on every level, even for adults, brilliant shows.
I don't think I've seen The Last Airbender.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So, I mean, it all depends on who's making it, and the execution.
I was even thinking of something like Batman the Animated Series in the early 90s, and how fantastic that was. And I think Paul Dini works on the animated series of the Star Trek show, of the Star Trek show also.
Oh, so really?
I don't know exactly. I don't know his position, but he also helps produce that show, or he helped produce that show as well. And Batman the Animated Series was something that was geared toward kids, but it had a lot of adult elements into it. And
as well, yeah.
And
I'm thinking about Yesteryear. Yeah, I mean, of course, Yesteryear is the go-to for animated series. Yeah. If you're watching one episode from that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that to me is the potential of even a Star Trek series that is quote unquote geared towards kids. Mm-hmm. That episode is fantastic. Yeah. Even watching it as a 30-something-year-old man.
Well, no, I mean, to your point, I mean, I think about movies that have come out that are theoretically geared toward and appropriate for kids. Toy Story or Big Hero 6. I was really surprised that that movie had these really heavy themes in it, but it was clearly something that a kid could enjoy and then grow into as you look at, as we might say, the morals, meanings, messages. And I want to clear something up real quick, because there are some people in the chat who are not familiar with Rick and Morty. And I just want to clear it up. It's not the guys who created Rick and Morty, which is a great series in its own right. It is really funny and really smart and very weird. So check it out if you can.
That's why it's awesome.
Yeah. But Mike McMahon, who actually created a Twitter account, TNG Season 8, which is hilarious and absolutely inspired. It's just him riffing on what would be comedically in an 8th season of Next Gen, and then he wrote a book of that as well. He has been a writer and producer on Rick and Morty, so he is the person who is developing this one animated series out of the two.
Cool.
Clearly, he knows his Star Trek, the ins and the outs, and what makes it funny as well. So I love the idea that we now live in a time with these 5 or 6 potential Star Trek series coming down the road, that you can have the funny one, you can have the kid one, you can have the Starfleet Academy one.
Look, bring them all on.
Just there's room for all of it.
Bring it all.
It all comes down to execution for me.
Absolutely.
Like, if it's well executed, it will play.
And we'll watch it.
Right.
So
we will.
If you don't mind, I want to keep asking you some questions that sort of tie back into what we did on Mission Log, because you guys are the only guys that I've talked to who've done the same thing that we've done. As far as going back and watching a rewatch of everything, yes. So the other question I have is I want to ask about what you noticed as far as differences with the characters from what was on TV to what happened in the movies. And take out the bigger budget, take out the makeup. Talk to me about what you saw with the characters at that point. So Kirk caught you in Corbin Might Maneuver, and then he kept you in City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah.
Kirk's a kind of a different guy in those movies. Spock is a very different guy in those movies. Talk to me about that sort of difference that you got to study.
Having discovered these characters for the first time, really, and watching the original series, it was great, and it had its thing, and I love that very, very much. And I still
made us fall in love with the characters.
Made us fall in love with the characters. That's why it was fantastic to do that. But when we got to the movies, like immediately something felt different.
Stuff got real.
Everyone felt like it was game time, and they showed up. And performance wise, story wise, just character and personal also. Like everyone just felt like we're gonna do this, and every movie felt like, hey, this may be our last one, so let's tell the story right.
That's a really good way to put it.
Every one of them felt like that. Like
go for broke.
Yeah, that's
which you don't necessarily get from the grind of television.
You don't. And that's one thing that's really great about movies. It's like, look, we have one chance to tell this story that we want to tell. We don't have next week to continue these stories with these characters. We got one shot. And just like you said, they took that break in between, that long break from the show to the movie. So they had time away. So coming back to it, they really felt like they were just throwing everything at the screen, and you felt it immediately. I was completely immersed in the characters, and having known them, it's almost emotional thinking about it, because they were, at that point, they felt like family revisiting you, and you wanted, and you were rooting for them with the simplest task, and you were not that you weren't on their side before, but you were really with them. And you were really tied to them emotionally, and you were connected to them throughout every little journey that they had within the movies.
Everything felt so much more real, right? Like
Absolutely.
as maligned and justifiably so as the first movie is, Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Let's get into that. Let's talk. Yeah.
The other side of that is, what that movie nailed was the sense of, this is what Gene always pictured Star Trek being in his head.
Yeah.
And that was just like, it still just gives me chills thinking about that.
It's
characters included.
Oh, absolutely. It's romantic almost, in a way. I mean, and I'm maybe I'm grasping for words here, but it's romantic in a sense where when I saw it, I was going, my Lord, they're really showing us the movie. They're showing us this presentation, like you said, that Gene had in his head. And I felt every second of that. However you felt about the movies, they showed up on every single one of them.
John Krikorian in the chat says, TMP is awesome, fight me.
We won't fight you. We won't.
No,
Because
no.
we'll fight the others with you, buddy.
Here's the thing. Not only do I think it's a great movie, I think it ages well. I appreciate it more the more I watch it.
Yeah.
And I also think that just in terms of the Star Trek mythos, it's a very necessary movie, that you have to have that movie for Spock's story to complete. And we get to tell Spock's whole story over 25 years by the time we get to the undiscovered country. It's kind of wonderful you get that much depth out of that character over that time. It's really cool.
Part of me wonders too if you couldn't argue that that's kind of one of the last big old movies in a way, and the only thing I'm thinking about is the overture. There's like
Overtures, man.
which I mean, honestly, when I was going back watching for Mission Log, I thought there was something wrong because there was like nothing.
Like, what is this black screen?
But there was music going, and I was like, "What is this?" What? And I was like, "Wow, okay, because that was '79. We already had Star Wars at that point."
I mean, that harkens back to the epics, the CinemaScope, super widescreen
when
epics
films
of the
were
50s and
an
60s.
event, films were a thing. You were presented, and it was an event. It felt like you were there. You were at something. You know what I mean? It was amazing.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I had to. I went and saw Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse recently, and the reason is because I wanted to see it on a big screen. And it doesn't matter how big your TV is. I mean, if it needs to be on a big screen, it needs to be on a big screen. Sadly, it was actually an old movie theater, so it was kind of a small big screen, but still.
But still big.
This is still a big screen.
Still big, and you're still watching it at that point with like 100 some odd people, or however many people were there, which is also kind of a neat sort of shared experience.
Yes. Oh yeah, there's an energy with the crowd.
Nothing beats the shoulder to shoulder with strangers watching a movie. That's the stuff that I love, man.
It's true, though.
It's like that makes movies to me. When you're
sticky floors,
you know what I mean? Popcorn. You're like you're shushing people every now and again. It's like that's an experience to me.
It's true.
That's a film experience.
It really
I know that there are theaters with recliners and heated seats and things that people love. This was a place called is a chain called AMC Classic. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It was out in the suburbs someplace. And I think AMC
Classic?
I believe AMC Classic is AMC's way of saying you're making just enough money that we're not going to close it.
Got it.
But we're also not going to fix it. But there are enough of these around the country, apparently, that they actually have a name
so
for it.
anything that I have to speed up in ghetto now, I'm calling it Classic.
Classic.
Right.
Pretty much.
On a Civic Classic.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it was weird, though, because it was like stepping back in time. Honestly, it reminded me of the theater where I first saw TMP because, yes, the floors were still sticky. And yeah, I don't know how long that carpet has been there. I will say really quickly, it was also the first theater I've been to where they ran a thing at the beginning that was basically you're on your own. It was kind of odd. They were like, we want everybody to enjoy their experience here. Please make sure that you know where your valuables are at all times. Also, look around and familiarize yourself with the location of all emergency exits. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
do they know something we don't?
This place might catch fire anytime.
Like I said, there's one exit and the door does not open.
Right. Classic theaters didn't have fire extinguishers, gentlemen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Really took it.
So look for the AMC Classic. Seriously, I do applaud them for actually, still being out there and doing their thing. Yeah, hey, we're gonna go back in a moment to our guest, but I want to really quickly remind people how to read the thing that I'm supposed to be reading. We've got another show coming up. Well, we don't have another show coming up, but the Roddenberry Podcast Network has another show coming up after this one. So please do me a favor. When we're done here, stay on Facebook and catch the live recording of Priority One, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Each Tuesday night at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific, Elijah, Kenna, and Tony bring you news from all over the Star Trek multiverse. It's TV and movie news, it's gaming news, it's literary reviews, plus a whole lot more. As I say, they kick off at half past the hour when we're done. So don't go anywhere, or if you do go someplace, take your portable viewing device with you and watch Priority One, recording at facebook.com/Priority One podcast. And if you can't catch the live show, do catch them on Friday because that is when their show drops. Look for it on iTunes or on Spotify or on Stitcher or on any of those other places where people get podcasts. Hey, we're on Pandora, by the way. Did you know that, John?
What?
Yeah, we're on Pandora. I don't remember yet if Priority One is on there. Yeah, Pandora added podcasts a few weeks ago, and we're there, and we're happy to be. So pretty much wherever you turn your head, you should be able to find a podcast. And we hope you'll find, Mission Log and Mission Log Live and Women at Warp and the Trek Files and Priority One and all of the above. Yeah. Hey, John, I know it's been a while, so you may have forgotten to tell our guests about the lightning round, because you're always good about that. You're always good about telling people about the lightning round.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I haven't actually, I hadn't met Josh really before this, and Ira and I mean, we talk sporadically. So, yeah, see, it kind of, when we were talking, I didn't kind of say anything about a lightning round.
If there's anything I hate more than quizzes, it's pop quizzes.
And lightning.
Well,
I love lightning.
Well, you're in luck, boys.
Yeah. So the next 10 minutes will just fly. Okay.
Painfully.
And I don't know what do we want to do, John? Do we want to have both guys answer each question, or do you want it back and forth, or what do you want to do?
No, I think both should answer each question. No stealing from each other, no cheating. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. None of this he took mine business.
Yeah. No, I can't have that.
Favorite bad episode of Star Trek?
Oh goodness, what's the one with Ruck?
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, yeah. Where they're in the gladiator arena, fighting the giant Ruck guy.
Mine's from TOS as well. I don't know if it's considered a bad episode because I genuinely love it, but I Mud.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
With the robots.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh no. I gotta say, Spock's brain. We love Spock's brain.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So do we. By the way, did you just say robot like a 1950s TV announcer?
Like Isaac Asimov.
Okay, good.
But you don't say robot?
Good. No, we had a whole discussion about this, about how robot needs to come back. Yeah.
It does. It really does.
Yeah. And what would be really great is robots who speak Klingon.
Yeah. Speak Klingon. Yeah.
Ichaya, Porthos, or Spot?
I'm gonna go Porthos.
Yeah, Porthos. Yeah, definitely.
Porthos for you too?
I like Porthos.
Well, if you're going Porthos, I'll go Spot.
No, I like Porthos.
I love them both. I really do.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer. All right. Favorite tech from Star Trek? Your favorite technology from Trek?
I'm gonna say tricorder for me. Just because I got one. I got one of those Playmates one when I was a kid. And I loved it so much. Oh, it was my favorite.
Quark's holodecks.
Well,
His holosuites.
Yeah, those were. I mean, I have a feeling those would be awesome.
Dirty man.
I have to hand it to you. Those are both new answers on this show. So
Really?
yeah, well done. I like that with the tricorder. Yeah. All right. Favorite Star Trek movie?
Oh, which one was that one? Was that the one?
Twalk for me.
Was that the one?
Rathacon.
Okay.
Rathacon.
No, I was the one.
No.
Mine was 4. Yeah, the
Yeah.
one that Spock directed. He directed that one, right? Yeah, mine was 4.
Well,
Yeah.
Leonard directed it.
Yeah,
Leonard.
Spock.
Yeah.
I call
He
him
directed-
Spock no matter what he does.
He directed 3 and 4, actually, not to be too much of a nerd, but
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think it's 4 though.
Uh, I think we know Josh's answer on this, but 10 forward or quarks?
Oh man, I gotta go Quarks, man.
Yeah.
Come on. All day, every day.
It's 10 forward for me.
Oh, God.
Your home in the stars is DS9.
If I had to pick one place to go in terms of Star Trek universe, it would be Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that crew. That's family to me. Whenever I watch them, I feel like I'm watching people that I've known for years.
Mine is the 90s Marriott in space.
Yeah. Okay.
That's mine.
Nice.
So you like the D?
Forward. Yeah.
You like the D?
Are either of you watching the Orville, by the way?
No.
I've seen it sporadically. Yeah.
They had a fantastic thing last week that I know was just based on TNG, where a new security officer came on and they're like, "So how do you like the ship?" And he's like, "Oh, it's great. Really digging the carpets."
Yep.
That was
I saw that.
fantastic.
I was totally
Yeah.
into that.
Favorite holodeck character?
Ooh, good question, y'all.
Hmm.
Moriarty.
Mm.
God, I was gonna say Moriarty too.
Well, there's
So right.
Minuet. There's Minuet.
No. I have Vic from
Vic
from
Fontaine.
Vic Fontaine.
Fontaine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Vic.
that's my boy, Vic Fontaine.
Yeah.
Played by the great James Darren. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. All right. Favorite Star Trek bad guy?
Ooh.
And I'll even qualify it by saying it doesn't have to be bad. We're just talking about the
Right.
foil. We're just
Okay.
talking about
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll go out Ducat.
Oh.
Oh man.
Okay.
All day,
Yeah.
man.
F you,
he's
that's
so,
good.
He's so good.
Okay, no, mine's from the same series. Mine's Kai Wynn.
Oh, yeah.
She
Oh.
is deliciously evil.
She is.
Oh.
That's right.
She makes my skin crawl, and I
Wait.
In the
love it.
best.
She becomes Kai? Okay.
Pathetic win. Pathetic win.
Yeah, we're not there yet. So way to go. That's actually, I did know that one though.
Sorry.
One tease.
Sorry.
Spoiler alert.
Every time.
All right. Favorite Starship.
You know, I honestly, I love the Enterprise D. I do. I think that's just because it's just the first one that
one you fell in love with.
I fell in love with. I would say the Enterprise D.
Man, mine vacillates between the D and the refit. So I'll say refit. It's just such an elegant ship, man.
Yeah, that's the correct answer. So thank you for that.
And of course, the last question that we ask everybody: have either of you been to Vulcan, Alberta, Canada?
No. I want to go
Okay.
though. I
Yeah.
want to go for the
All right.
festival.
Is this a place?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. Yeah, and they do it like a convention every year.
So much.
And they have a giant enterprise right in the middle of town. We hear, and members of the town council actually dress up as members of what is it, of Starfleet or of the Federation Council?
Yeah, Starfleet, and I think they have you have like the Vulcan roller rink, and you have the
As they want to
mortuary. And,
It is logical to skate
yeah. Just everything in there.
clockwise.
Vulcan barbecue.
It's very
Yeah.
regimented.
Exactly.
Very
Exactly.
clockwise.
Vulcan French press.
Exactly.
Never a couple skate though, because it's not logical that you should kick people out who paid good money just because they don't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever.
Right. It makes no sense. Come on.
None whatsoever.
It's got to be hard for Vulcans to meet each other, right?
It really does.
Like romantically.
Yeah, like
They're like, what are we doing?
honestly,
This is
let's just skip to the marriage.
Check back with me in 7 years. Yeah.
Exactly.
Guys, I just want to ask you before we go, because we got a couple of minutes here to wrap this up. And you did this journey together with all of TOS, but you were Star Trek fans before the fact. And I'm just curious, one of the things that Ken and I do, and kind of the goal with Mission Log is, at the end of the day, try to figure out what the message is from Star Trek. Everybody takes away something a little bit different. Everybody who's a fan probably gets a little something different out of Star Trek. And I'm curious, particularly with you, Josh, because this was all new to you.
Yeah.
What do you think the original series was trying to do? What do you think it was trying to say?
Acceptance. Fully acceptance for everyone and anyone. It didn't matter who you were, where you were from, what you were about, what you believed in. No matter what, I think that's Starfleet's message. It's acceptance. With all the different races and aliens and places we went, and even the fans that are welcomed in from, if you've watched it as a little boy or a little girl, or you started watching it as an adult, you're accepted, and even in the community, you're accepted as well. It's accepted on the show with characters, it's acceptance, and then within the community with all of us, it's this social acceptance as well. And that's what I've picked up from it, being a newer fan and talking to people that have watched it, throughout their entire life.
Yeah, the podcast has really connected us to
Absolutely.
the show, but also to wonderful, wonderful people like you.
Yeah,
And
it's been so welcoming and so accepting.
It's amazing.
And you don't feel judged. You just you will both love the same thing. You all love the same thing, and you bond over that, and it's beautiful.
I gotta ask, do you guys go to the Vegas convention? And if you haven't yet, how excited are you to come this year for the first time? Because seriously, after that, I think you need to come out.
We have an announcement to make.
Oh.
For the very first time ever, Josh.
I will be attending the Vegas convention this year. Yes.
With me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I've been before.
We're going.
Awesome.
Okay.
This is going to be Josh's first Star Trek convention. Full stop.
Yeah. I was trying to go last year. It just didn't happen. So I'm like, nope, I have to make this happen. And so this year, the year, it's happening. We're going to be there. And I'm sure it's
so
going
excited.
to be a blast.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's weird because there have always been sort of like, well, I say always, for the past 6 years, I guess, is how long I've been going, 6 or 7 years. And there have been 2 points on the calendar for me. It's Christmas, and then it's, Christmas in Vegas. And that's it. I mean, it's just So it's really cool. I'm glad you're going to be out there because, yeah, everything that you're talking about. I mean, it is sort of a neat thing to have happen here, but then to be in a room with a few thousand people.
Yeah, I'm
and
so excited for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, guys. Yep.
We just want to say thank you so much for having us on, you guys. It's really been an honor
and the ships,
and a pleasure.
I've been looking at your ships.
Yes, we have to say, John, your ships are amazing.
I've been trying to look you in the eye, and I'm like, oh, look at that shit.
Saucer separated and everything.
Like, look at those lighting up.
Well, credit where credit is due. These were actually made complements of Malpass models, MALPAS models, for Rod and for kind of the Roddenberry collection. So, and they're so cool. Come by sometimes. You can see them up close. They light up, and yeah, they're excellent. So, come by.
Hey, really quickly.
We would love
remind people who want to find out more about your show. What's the best place to go? What's the best place to find it?
We're at 2guys1trek.com, all spelled out, 2guys1trek. And just search for us on social media. We're on social media, 2guys1trek.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I really appreciate both of you joining us tonight, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you in Vegas, if not before that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In the meantime, I want to let everybody know Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Technical production this week. Again, huge thanks to Earl Green for jumping in and actually, getting his show in the stream. Now, we would love it if you would check out the Mission Log shop if you want to, because do we still have things in the Mission Log shop?
We got 2 or 3 things there.
Yeah, drop by and find out. Go to the missionlogpodcast.com and then click shop in the upper right-hand corner and see what's left. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from the Roddenberry Podcast Network, including not just Mission Log and Mission Log Live, but also Women at Warp, Priority One, and the Trek Files. Thanks to everybody who joined us live or later, and we will talk to you next week.